Karl McDermott, head groundsman of Lords. Thanks for joining us here at the home of cricket today. Karl, we're in National Grounds Week, a big week in the calendar year for all ground staff. Just want to chat to you about your journey. You started out at the young old age of 14 over in Clontarf in Ireland. Tell us how you got into it in those early days.
Yeah, started at 14, as you said. My maths teacher was the groundsman at the local cricket club. He played for Ireland a bit in the past and good club cricketer. But he was a volunteer groundsman at the club, and he was looking for someone to give him a hand. You know, it was a busy club with 6 or 7 men's teams and kids, schoolboys and girls, a lot of teams. So he took on 3 of us during that summer, hoping that one would keep up the job, and he was right. I was the one that kept it up.
You then opted, I think I'm right in saying, in 2008 to move over to England, where you took up a groundsmanship at Worcester. A year there?
Yeah, a year there. I was always looking to move over to the UK at some point. I think the club were quite successful in a way in Ireland. They hosted Benson Hedges, Cheltenham, Gloucester trophy games. We had a World Cup game in 1999 where the West Indies played Bangladesh, and that sort of gave me the desire and sort of push to move over to the UK and try and be a test match groundsman. Worcester came up in 2008. I tried a few opportunities before that which hadn't worked out, but time was just right for me. I went over and joined them for a year on their team.
So I think you were with them just for the year before you went down to Southampton to the GS Bowl, where you, I guess, pretty much made a big name for yourself in the first class game as ground staff. I think 10 years down there?
Yeah, 10 seasons down there. The opportunity came up to be a deputy down there to Nigel Gray, who'd been there a long time, and it being obviously an up-and-coming ground with Test cricket, they were just about to have their first Test match, and that was the real pull for me. And things work out, the chance to succeed, Nigel was one that I couldn't say no to.
Well, the big difference is, Karl, from obviously back in Clontarf, where you started, to then finding yourself as on the ground staff at the Aegeus, first class cricket coming out of your ears, and obviously tasting international cricket. What are the big differences then? Feel added pressure, or?
Oh, not well. One big difference: facilities are obviously better over in the UK. You know, there's more machinery, more staff. You know, as a one-man band with some willing volunteers back in Clontarf in the day, and having the extra help gives you the chance to do the extra little jobs. And there is added pressure, obviously, with the bigger matches, but you know, it's part and parcel of the job now.
You find yourself here now at the home of cricket, where you're head groundsman. Joined us in 2018, I think I'm right in saying. You've obviously got the wonderful job now of preparing wickets for Middlesex, and of course every year you're preparing wickets for hugely important international test matches. What's that like? Obviously you mentioned a good support staff around you. Talk us through that process of working on a big international game.
Oh, I think, you know, for me, there's no better buzz than a test match or an ODI or the World Cup, for example, when it was here in 19. I think the things that go on around it, the expectation, the pressure, I think that's, for me, that's the big thing. You know, I enjoy big games, I enjoy test matches, I enjoy the run-up. You know, the pressure is great. That's why I would never do anything else but cricket. I think cricket's unique. It's a real challenge to prepare a cricket pitch. And when you get it right, you know, there's a real sense of satisfaction as a team when you do that.
You're only in your mid-40s now, Karl. Do you find when you've got that big pressure, you've got that test match game approaching? I've spoken to a few kind of club groundsmen and who we've played out-ground games at, and they're looking on kind of expectantly at that first delivery, because you can put a huge amount of work into a cricket wicket, and yet you still don't know quite how it's going to behave until that first ball goes down. Do you still find you've got that air of expectation and worry, I guess, waiting here at Lords for that first ball to be bowled?
I think so. I think you've always have butterflies, and if you don't, you're probably lying. I think you live in hope all the time. I think, you know, we know that we tick all the right boxes and we do all the right preparation, and hopefully the weather's on your side, and you need a bit of luck as well, because obviously we've got a heavy fixture load, not only at Lords but every county ground does. So you never have that clean run up to a test match that you'd like. But when you get it right, you do watch the first ball. I watch the first few overs, and I might disappear for a little while and then come back. But as long as you see the first one go through and not grub along the ground, you think you've done a pretty good job.
It's a pretty obvious thing for me to say, Karl, but without a ground, you've got no game. How important is groundsmanship in getting the game on? And obviously this week is all about raising the awareness of what ground staff do. It's probably one of the most vital roles yet, probably the most underestimated or undervalued role, if you like, at any club.
Well, obviously, being a club groundsman when I started, I've known what I've been through on my own with no machinery, broken machinery, no covers, no staff. The number of hours that grounds staff work now at club cricket is huge, and I don't think anyone at a cricket club really understands what goes into getting that piece of grass out for you on a Saturday afternoon when you play. Volunteers were big back in the day. I think they're diminishing a little bit now, but hopefully there's a bit of a resurgence when clubs, you need volunteers, you need groundsmen, paid or unpaid, to put the game on. And, if you see that groundsman in the bar, you need to buy him a drink because you don't know what he's been through to get to that day.
As someone that sits here at the top of the tree, Karl, now, what would you look for in a young grounds person if you're looking to add to your team, for example? What skills are you looking for in the next employee that works under Karl McDermott?
I think you need passion. I think you need commitment. You can forget about other stuff during the summer really at times. Whilst our work-life balance is trying to get better, but working at a venue like Lord's is unique, where the expectations are so high that you need to be committed and have that passion, as I say, towards doing the job properly. There are courses now that people can do, which is great, but I didn't do any sports turf courses, so to speak. I'm self-taught all the way. I made good mistakes and bad mistakes, so to speak, but you learn from those. And I think don't be afraid to dip your toe in the water, and if it's something that you really enjoy, there's no better job than working outdoors.
One thing that strikes me is very evident straight away when looking at you and your team when you're working on a match is the togetherness and the camaraderie. I guess like playing cricket, that's a massive part of you working as a unit.
Yeah, massively. I've been very lucky. We had a good team at Worcester, a good team at Hampshire, and I've come into a really, really good team here as well, and we all enjoy each other's company, on and off the field. So you need that, I think, in a team, because if you don't, it's a pretty long summer.
Aside of the perk that you mentioned of somebody coming up to the bar and buying you a beer, what should a young person watching this video that's aspiring to a career in groundsmanship, what should they be looking forward to?
I think when I was younger and I wanted to move to the UK or get a better job, I did things that made me feel uncomfortable and put myself in positions where, as a young guy from Ireland, didn't do. For example, I worked overseas, and I think if any guys get a chance to spend a winter in Australia or New Zealand or something like that, they should take it, because not only is it work experience, but it's a great life experience for a young guy before you get tied down with mortgages and families and things like that. So, there's opportunities there for everybody, but they're not going to come to you. I think you just need to go and find them.
Last one, Karl. You've got the Ashes coming up this year. It's quite a big game here at Lord's. What's the mood like with you and the team ahead of that, and how much importance is there on the wicket that gets prepared? Because obviously people focus enormously on the standards of the sides and the performances of the sides, but ultimately they're playing on a surface that you've prepared.
I think I always wanted to be an Ashes Test match groundsman. I think that was one of my big aims when I came over to the UK. And in 19, when I was here, my first Ashes Test, the buzz around it was unbelievable. It's not just another Test match here. It is the Ashes. It carries way more weight than any other fixture that we have. I don't know why. Probably England, Australia a bit, but comes with that pressure. And the guys, my team, are really, really good on pitching up, and they know the importance of that game. And whilst we treat every game the same, we always want to deliver the same sort of standards. The Ashes is definitely a different level.
I said that was my last question. I am going to ask you one more. What do you want out of a pitch? So obviously people will be turning up here looking for an entertaining game of cricket. Is that what you aspire to as the head groundsman? Do you just want a competitive game? Yeah,
I think so. I think from a pitch perspective, we're always looking for a bit more pace and a bit more carry. Spin will naturally come into it if we play 4 or 5 days. We just know that, especially in the height of the summer. As long as we can have good games of cricket on bad pitches and vice versa, bad games of cricket on really good pitches. So you need a bit of luck, as I said before. You just sort of hope that first ball goes through and somebody gets a couple of hundreds along the way, and it drags the game deep into the days.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully there'll be England hundreds. Karl, thanks ever so much for joining us. It's been really interesting catching up. Really appreciate your time.
No, you're more than welcome.